The research station on planet Kepler 442b was a place where humans and aliens worked together. The station looked like a giant metal spider sitting on the purple ground of the strange world. Its long metal legs held up a round center where everyone lived and worked. Through the big windows, the crew could see the alien landscape with its weird plants and orange sky. Dr. Minji Park sat at her computer in the biology lab. She was a small woman with short black hair and tired eyes. For 3 weeks, she had been studying the data from sensors placed all around the planet. The numbers on her screen made her feel sick with worry. Something terrible was going to happen. The planet was dying. Not slowly over millions of years, but fast, very fast. The electromagnetic field that protected the world was breaking down. Minji could see it in the data. The magnetic lines that kept deadly space radiation away were twisting and snapping like rubber bands. Soon they would fail completely. When that happened, a wave of deadly energy would sweep across the planet. Every living thing for 50 kilometers would die within minutes. The research station sat right in the middle of the danger zone. Minji printed out her findings and walked to the main meeting room. Her hands shook as she carried the papers. She had to warn everyone. They had maybe one day, maybe less, before the planet killed them all. The meeting room was full of people. Humans sat on one side of the long table, and the alien Velthani sat on the other side. The Velthani looked like tall gray lizards walking on 2 legs. Their skin was smooth and their eyes were big and yellow. They thought they were much smarter than humans. Commander Taeho Kim sat at the head of the table. He was a big man with gray hair who liked to keep everyone happy. Next to him sat the Velthani science officer named Kent. Kent had small scars on his face that showed he was important among his people. Dr. Wanbin Lee was there too. He was always trying to make the aliens like him. He nodded at everything they said and laughed at their jokes. Engineer Huna Choi sat beside him, taking notes on her tablet. Minji cleared her throat. "I need to show you all something very important." Commander Taeho looked at her with annoyance. "Make it quick, Dr. Park. We have a lot to cover today." Minji put her papers on the table. "The planet's electromagnetic field is collapsing. My sensors show that the magnetic barriers are breaking down. When they fail completely, deadly radiation from space will hit the surface. Everything living within 50 kilometers will die." The room went quiet. Then Kent made a sound like a laugh mixed with a hiss. "Impossible," Kent said in his strange accent. "Our sensors show no such danger. Human equipment is very basic compared to Velthani technology. You must be reading the data wrong." Dr. Wanbin nodded quickly. "Kent is right. The Velthani have been studying space for thousands of years longer than humans. If there was real danger, their sensors would detect it first." Minji felt her face get hot with anger. "I've checked the data 20 times. The electromagnetic field will collapse within the next 18 to 20 hours. We need to evacuate the station immediately." Commander Taeho rubbed his forehead. "Dr. Park, we can't just abandon our mission because of some computer readings. This is a joint operation with our Velthani partners. We can't panic over nothing." "It's not nothing," Minji said, her voice getting louder. "Look at these numbers. The field strength has dropped 40% in the last week alone. The collapse pattern matches every theoretical model for electromagnetic failure." Pilot Junho Nam laughed from across the table. "Dr. Park, you've been staring at those screens too long. Space makes people paranoid sometimes. It happens to all humans out here." Botanist So Young Kang nodded. "Junho is right. Deep space paranoia is a real condition. Maybe you should take some time to rest." The Velthani science officer Velok spoke up. His voice was cold and mocking. "Humans always see danger where none exists. It is because you evolved from prey animals. Fear kept your ancestors alive, but now it makes you jump at shadows." Another Velthani named Kryn made the hissing laugh sound. "Yes, mammalian fear responses. Very primitive. Our sensors show the planet is completely stable. This human female should trust superior Velthani science instead of her emotional reactions." Minji felt like screaming. She spread her papers across the table. "These aren't emotions. This is data. Real measurements from real sensors. The planet's core is destabilizing. The electromagnetic field that protects us is about to collapse completely." Communications Officer Do-hyun Park shook his head. "Even if you're right, we can't send a distress signal without proof. Earth Command would think we're crazy if we abandoned the mission based on one person's theory." Medic Unisong looked at Minji with concern. "You look very stressed, Dr. Park. When did you last sleep properly?" "I have some mild sedatives that might help you relax." I don't need to relax, Minji shouted. I need you all to listen to me. This planet is going to kill us all if we don't leave right now. Commander Tejo stood up. That's enough, Dr. Park. You're disturbing the entire crew with these wild theories. The Valthani sensors show no danger. Our own general sensors show no immediate threats. I think you need to take some time off from your research. Kent nodded with satisfaction. The human female is clearly suffering from mental problems. On Valthani ships, we would confine such individuals to prevent them from causing panic among the crew. Please, Minji said, looking around the table. Just look at my data. Give me 5 minutes to explain what the sensors are showing. The electromagnetic field collapse will create a radiation burst that will kill every living thing on this planet's surface. Dr. Wanbin waved his hand dismissively. Dr. Park, you're embarrassing all of us humans with this hysteria. The Valtani are our partners and allies. Their technology is far beyond ours. If they say there's no danger, then there's no danger. Engineer Yuna Choi closed her tablet. I agree with Dr. Lee. We should trust our alien colleagues. They've been traveling between stars since before humans discovered fire. Security Chief Jin Woo Han crossed his arms. Dr. Park, if you continue to disrupt these meetings with panic theories, I'll have to recommend that the commander confine you to quarters. We can't have crew members spreading fear for no reason. Minji looked around the table one more time. Every face showed either mockery, annoyance, or pity. No one believed her. No one would even look at her evidence. Fine, she said quietly. Don't listen to me. But when that electromagnetic pulse hits and kills everyone in this room, remember that I tried to warn you. You all chose to ignore the data because it came from a human instead of a Valthani. She gathered her papers and walked toward the door. Behind her, she could hear the aliens making their hissing laugh sounds and the humans muttering about her breakdown. As she reached the door, Commander Taiho called after her. Dr. Park, I want you to report to medical for a psychological evaluation. And stay away from the communication systems. We don't need you sending false alarms to Earth. Minji didn't answer. She walked back to her lab and looked at her computer screen. The numbers were even worse now. The electromagnetic field was collapsing faster than she had predicted. They had maybe 18 hours left to live, and she was the only one who knew it. The next morning, Minji walked through the station corridors and felt everyone watching her. Word about her warning had spread to the entire crew. Instead of taking her seriously, they all thought she was crazy. In the cafeteria, pilot Junho Nam sat with a group of technicians. When he saw Minji getting her breakfast, he spoke loudly enough for everyone to hear. Look, there's our disaster expert, Junho said with a big smile. Hey, Dr. Park, did you check if any asteroids are going to hit us today? Maybe some space monsters are coming to eat us? The technicians laughed. Maintenance Officer Kyung-ho Bae shook his head. Humans always think the universe is trying to kill them. It's like we can't just accept that space is mostly empty and boring. Chef Haeun Lim looked up from cleaning tables. My grandmother used to say that people who look for trouble will always find it, even when it's not there. Minji tried to ignore them and sat alone at a small table. She had barely started eating when botanist So-young Kang sat down across from her. Minji, I'm worried about you, So-young said in a fake caring voice. Everyone is talking about how you've been acting strange. Maybe the isolation of space is getting to you. It happens to lots of people. I'm not crazy, Minji said quietly. The data is real. The electromagnetic field is collapsing. So-young patted Minji's hand like she was a child. Of course you believe that. But sometimes our minds play tricks on us, especially when we're under stress. Have you been sleeping well? Eating properly? Before Minji could answer, 2 Valthani entered the cafeteria. It was Velox and Kryn, the ones who had laughed at her the day before. They got their strange alien food and sat at a table nearby, but they spoke loud enough for all the humans to hear. The human female is still spreading her fear stories, Velox said in his cold voice. On Valthani ships, we would never allow such disruption. Kryn made his hissing laugh. Humans are ruled by emotion instead of logic. Their brains developed to run from predators, not to understand complex science. This is why they need Valthani guidance. Perhaps we should request that Earth Command replace her. Velox continued. A more stable human would be better for this important mission. Several human crew members looked uncomfortable, but no one defended Minji. Dr. Wanbin Lee even nodded in agreement with the aliens. They have a point, Dr. Wanbin said to his breakfast companion, Engineer Yuna Choi. We can't have team members who panic over computer glitches. It makes all humans look bad in front of our Valthani partners. Yuna nodded. I heard she was bothering communications officer Do-hyun last night, trying to get him to send emergency messages to Earth, without commander approval. That's almost mutiny. Minji's face burned with shame and anger. She had tried to convince Do-hyun to send a warning message, but he had refused. Now it sounded like she was trying to steal his job or disobey orders. After breakfast, Minji went to the medical bay to see if she could convince someone to look at her data. Medic Yuna Song was checking supply inventories when Minji walked in. Dr. Park, Yuna said with concern. How are you feeling today? Any anxiety, trouble sleeping, racing thoughts? I feel fine, Minji said. I just need someone to look at my electromagnetic field readings. The data shows clear signs of imminent collapse. Yuna pulled out a small medical scanner. Let me check your stress levels and brain chemistry. Sometimes prolonged exposure to alien environments can cause hallucinations or paranoid thinking. I'm not hallucinating, Minji said, stepping back from the scanner. The sensors are detecting real changes in the planet's magnetic field. Yuna looked at her with pity. Minji, denial is part of the condition. People experiencing deep space paranoia often become convinced that their delusions are real. They see patterns in random data and create elaborate theories about imaginary dangers. Before Minji could respond, Security Chief Jin Woo-han entered the medical bay. He was a large man with serious eyes who didn't like problems. Dr. Park, Jin Woo said, I need to talk to you about your behavior yesterday. Several crew members have complained that you're causing unnecessary panic and disrupting operations. I was trying to warn people about a real danger, Minji said. Jin Woo crossed his arms. According to Commander Kim and the Valthani science team, there is no danger. You're basing your claims on misunderstood data and creating problems for everyone. Medic Yuna nodded. I was just explaining to Dr. Park that her symptoms are consistent with deep space paranoia. It's a real medical condition that affects humans on long space missions. Is that your professional diagnosis? Jin Woo asked. Based on her behavior and statements, yes, Yuna replied. I recommend immediate treatment with calming medications and restricted access to sensitive areas of the station. Minji felt trapped. You can't confine me for being right about scientific data. We can confine you for disturbing the peace and refusing medical treatment, Jin Woo said. Commander Kim is being patient because you're a valuable scientist, but that patience has limits. Minji left the medical bay and walked to the engineering section. Maybe Engineer Somin Yu would listen to reason. Somin was young and smart, and she usually asked good questions about everything. She found Somin working on atmospheric processors with technician Nari Kim. When they saw Minji approaching, they exchanged worried looks. Hi, Dr. Park, Somin said carefully. How are you doing today? I need you to look at some data, Minji said, pulling out her tablet. The electromagnetic field readings show that the planet's magnetic protection is failing. Nari laughed nervously. Dr. Park, we're not planetary scientists. We just fix machines. Maybe you should talk to the Valthani science team about this. The Valthani won't listen to me, Minji said. They think all humans are stupid. Somin looked uncomfortable. That's not true. The Valthani respect human abilities. They just have more advanced technology than we do. If their sensors don't detect any problems, then there probably aren't any problems. But what if their sensors are wrong? Minji asked. What if they're not designed to detect this specific type of electromagnetic collapse? Nari shook her head. Dr. Park, the Valthani have been traveling through space for thousands of years. They've seen every kind of planetary disaster possible. If they say we're safe, then we're safe. Minji tried to show them her data, but Somin backed away. I'm sorry, Dr. Park, but I can't look at that. Commander Kim sent out a message this morning. Anyone who encourages your theories will face disciplinary action. I can't risk my career. As the day went on, Minji found herself completely alone. Every person she approached either ignored her, laughed at her, or told her to seek medical help. The humans trusted the aliens more than they trusted her. The aliens treated her like a dangerous, crazy person. During the afternoon shift change, she overheard geologist Minho Shin talking to communications officer Do-hyun Park. I feel sorry for Dr. Park, Minho said. Space madness is a terrible thing. My cousin had it during the Mars expedition. Started seeing patterns in rock formations that weren't really there. At least she's harmless, Do-hyun replied. Some people with space paranoia become violent. They start thinking everyone is plotting against them. Should we be worried about that? Minho asked. Security Chief Han is watching her closely. If she becomes dangerous, they'll sedate her and put her in medical isolation until we can get her back to Earth. Minji realized that not only did no one believe her, but they were also starting to see her as a threat. If she kept pushing, they would drug her and lock her up. Then she wouldn't be able to help anyone when the disaster struck. That evening, she sat alone in her quarters looking at her computer screen. The electromagnetic field readings were getting worse by the hour. The collapse would happen soon, probably within the next 12 to 16 hours. She had tried everything. She had shown her data to everyone who would look. She had explained the science as simply as she could. She had begged and pleaded for them to take precautions. Nothing had worked. The humans trusted the aliens more than their own people. The aliens were too proud to admit they might be wrong about anything. And now everyone thought she was crazy. Tomorrow they would all be dead, and she would be the only one who saw it coming. Minji woke up at 4 in the morning and checked her sensors. The electromagnetic field was collapsing faster than her worst predictions. She had maybe 20 hours left, possibly less. The station would be hit by deadly radiation before the next sunrise. She got dressed quickly and ran to the communication center. Maybe she could send a message to Earth without permission. Someone back home might understand the danger even if no one here would listen. Communications Officer Do-Yun Park was on night duty. When he saw Minji entering his work area, he stood up and blocked her path. "Dr. Park, you're not supposed to be here," Do-Yun said. Commander Kim gave strict orders. "No access to communication systems without supervision, Do-Yun. Please listen to me," Minji said desperately. "The planet is going to kill everyone on this station in less than 20 hours. We need to send an emergency evacuation request to Earth Command." Do-Hyun shook his head. "I can't do that. Commander Kim and the Vailthani science team both say there's no danger. If I send false emergency signals, I'll be court-martialed when we get back to Earth." "What if I'm right?" Minji asked. "What if everyone dies because you wouldn't send one message?" "You're not right," Do-Hyun said firmly. "The Vailthani have sensors that are hundreds of years more advanced than anything we have. If there was real danger, they would detect it first." Minji wanted to scream with frustration. "Their sensors might not be designed to detect this type of electromagnetic collapse. Different technologies have different blind spots, Dr. Park. You need to stop this," Do-Hyun said. "Everyone is worried about you. This obsession with disaster is not healthy. You should go back to your quarters and try to get some rest." Minji left the communication center and went to find Security Chief Jinwoo Han. Maybe she could convince him to at least prepare the emergency evacuation pods. That wouldn't require sending messages to Earth or admitting the aliens were wrong. She found Jinwoo in the security office reviewing overnight reports. When he saw her, his expression became stern. "Dr. Park, what are you doing awake at this hour? Are you having trouble sleeping? That's another symptom of deep space paranoia." "Jinwoo, I need you to check the emergency evacuation systems," Minji said. "Make sure the pods are ready to launch." Just as a precaution, Jinwoo leaned back in his chair. "Dr. Park, I'm not going to waste time and resources checking evacuation systems because of your theories. Commander Kim has made it clear that there is no danger to this station." "But what if there is?" Minji asked. "What if something goes wrong? Shouldn't we be prepared for any emergency?" "The only emergency I see is your mental state," Jinwoo said coldly. "You're disturbing the crew, refusing medical treatment, and now you're bothering people during their sleep cycles. This has to stop." Minji felt tears forming in her eyes. "In 18 hours, everyone on this station will be dead from radiation poisoning. I'm trying to save your life. In 18 hours, you'll realize that nothing happened and hopefully get the psychological help you need," Jinwoo replied. "Now go back to your quarters. If I see you bothering crew members again tonight, I'll have you sedated and confined to medical isolation." Minji walked through the empty corridors feeling hopeless. She stopped at Engineer Somin Yu's quarters and pressed the door chime. After a few minutes, Somin opened the door wearing her sleep clothes and looking annoyed. "Dr. Park, it's 4:30 in the morning." "What do you want?" "Somin, please just listen to me for 2 minutes," Minji begged. "The electromagnetic field is collapsing. Everyone will die unless we evacuate immediately." Somin rubbed her eyes tiredly. "Dr. Park, you need to stop this. Everyone knows you're having some kind of breakdown. You're making it worse by bothering people at night." "I'm not having a breakdown," Minji said. "I'm trying to save everyone's life." "No, you're scaring people and making them lose sleep," Somin said. "If you don't stop this behavior, Security Chief Han is going to lock you up." Is that what you want? Soman closed the door in Minji's face. Minji stood in the corridor feeling completely alone. Every person she had tried to help thought she was crazy. No one would listen to her warnings or even look at her data. She went to the observation deck and looked out at the alien landscape. The planet looked peaceful in the dim light of its distant sun. The strange purple plants swayed in the thin wind. Nothing seemed dangerous or threatening. But Minji knew that beneath the surface, the planet's magnetic core was tearing itself apart. At 6 in the morning, the day shift started. Minji watched the crew going about their normal routines. Geologist Minho Shin and technician Nari Kim were getting ready to go outside and collect rock samples. They had no idea they were about to walk into a death trap. Chef Haeun Lim was preparing breakfast for everyone. Maintenance officer Kyung-ho Bae was fixing a broken air recycler. Pilot Junho Nam was running diagnostic tests on the shuttle. Everyone acted like it was just another normal day. At 7 o'clock, Minji went to the main briefing room where Commander Taeho Kim was meeting with the Valthani leadership. She knew this would be her last chance to convince anyone. Commander Kim saw her entering and frowned. Dr. Park, you weren't invited to this meeting. The Valthani Captain Thex was there, along with Science Officer Kent and several other aliens. They all looked at Minji with disgust. Commander Kim, I need just 5 minutes to explain what's happening to this planet, Minji said. The electromagnetic field will collapse in approximately 13 hours. When that happens, deadly radiation will kill everyone within 50 kilometers. Captain Thex made the hissing sound that passed for alien laughter. This human female continues to insult superior Valthani science with her primitive theories. I apologize for her behavior, Commander Kim said quickly. Dr. Park is suffering from a medical condition that affects humans on long space missions. She's not thinking clearly. Perhaps, Science Officer Kent said coldly, but her continued disruptions are becoming intolerable. On Valthani ships, crew members who spread panic and refuse to accept proper authority are confined until they can be removed from the ship. Commander Kim nodded. I understand your concerns. Dr. Park, you have 2 choices. Either report to medical for immediate psychological treatment, or I'll have security confine you to quarters for the remainder of the mission. Minji looked around the room. Every face showed either anger, disappointment, or contempt. The humans were embarrassed by her behavior. The aliens saw her as proof that humans were inferior and unstable. You're all going to die, she said quietly. In 13 hours, this planet will release an electromagnetic pulse that will kill every living thing on its surface. Your advanced sensors are wrong. Your superior technology is useless against this type of disaster. Captain Thex stood up, his tall gray form towering over everyone else. Enough. This human insults our intelligence and our capabilities. Commander Kim, remove her from this room immediately, or we will consider this a hostile act against the Valthani expedition. Commander Kim's face turned red with anger and embarrassment. Security to the briefing room, he said into his communicator. Dr. Park needs to be escorted to medical. Minji backed toward the door. Don't you understand? I'm trying to save your lives. All of your lives. Human and Valthani. The radiation doesn't care what species you are. The only thing that needs saving is your sanity, Commander Kim said. Security Chief Han, please escort Dr. Park to medical for immediate evaluation and treatment. Jin Woo Han appeared in the doorway with 2 security officers. Dr. Park, you need to come with us. Minji realized she was out of options. If she went with security, they would drug her and lock her up. She wouldn't be able to prepare for the disaster or help anyone when it happened. She needed to find another way. I'll go to medical voluntarily, she said. Just give me an hour to finish my research and write up my final reports. Commander Kim looked suspicious. 1 hour. Then you report to medical for treatment. No excuses, no delays. Minji nodded and left the briefing room. She had 1 hour before they would come looking for her. 1 hour to prepare for the death of everyone she had tried to save. She went back to her lab and started gathering emergency supplies. Food, water, medical kit, radiation detector, breathing mask. If she was going to be the only survivor, she needed to be ready. Outside her window, she could see Minho and Nari getting into their environmental suits for another day of geological surveys. They were laughing about something as they checked their equipment. In 12 hours, they would both be dead. Minji looked at her computer screen one more time. The electromagnetic field strength had dropped to critical levels. The collapse was accelerating. She had maybe 11 hours now, possibly less. She grabbed her supplies and headed for Emergency Pod Bay 3. It was the most heavily shielded area of the station, designed to protect the evacuation pods from space radiation. If anywhere could keep her alive through the electromagnetic pulse, it would be there. As she walked through the corridors, she passed crew members going about their daily work. Dr. Wanbin was analyzing soil samples. Botanist So-young was studying alien plant specimens. Engineer Hyuna was upgrading the station's computer systems. All of them would be dead before tomorrow morning. And none of them believed her warnings. Minji reached the emergency pod bay and sealed herself inside. The heavy doors closed with a solid metallic thunk. The independent life support. Minji sat in the emergency pod bay watching the clock on her tablet. 10 hours until the electromagnetic collapse. 9 hours. 8 hours. The numbers counted down like a timer on a bomb that no one else could see. Through the viewport, she watched the crew going about their normal day. Around midday, she saw Dr. Wanbin and Engineer Hyuna having lunch together, probably still talking about how crazy she was. Security Chief Jinwoo walked past her window twice, clearly looking for her, but he never thought to check the emergency pod bay. At 2 in the afternoon, Commander Kim's voice came over the station-wide communication system. Dr. Minji Park, report to medical immediately. This is a direct order. If you do not comply within 30 minutes, you will be declared in violation of mission protocols. Minji didn't respond. Let them think she was hiding somewhere in the station. In 6 hours, it wouldn't matter what they thought about her behavior. She watched geologist Minho and technician Nari return from their morning survey mission. They were carrying sample containers and looked happy about their discoveries. They had no idea they had just spent their last day alive exploring an alien world. 3 hours before the disaster, pilot Junho started running pre-flight checks on the shuttle. Maybe he was planning a routine supply run to the orbital station. He would never get the chance to complete it. 2 hours before the collapse, Chef Haeun began preparing dinner for the evening shift. She was making some kind of stew that smelled good even through the sealed pod bay doors. It would be the last meal she ever cooked. 1 hour before the end, Minji saw Commander Kim and the Velthani Captain Thex walking through the corridor outside her window. They were probably still discussing what to do about the crazy human scientist who wouldn't accept proper medical treatment. 30 minutes before the electromagnetic collapse, maintenance alarms started going off throughout the station. Minji could hear them even through the thick walls of the pod bay. Her heart started beating faster. The planet's magnetic field was beginning its final breakdown. She pressed her face against the viewport and watched Maintenance Officer Kyung-ho running toward the power generation section. The station's systems were starting to detect the increasing electromagnetic interference, but they probably thought it was just equipment problems. 20 minutes before the disaster, more alarms began sounding. Emergency lights started flashing in the corridors. Through the viewport, Minji could see crew members looking confused and worried as they tried to figure out what was wrong with their equipment. Communications Officer Do-hyun appeared in the corridor, speaking rapidly into his headset, probably trying to contact the orbital station or send a message to Earth. But the growing electromagnetic interference was making all communications impossible. 10 minutes before the collapse, the lights in the main station started flickering. Backup power systems activated automatically. The crew was beginning to realize that something was seriously wrong, but they still didn't understand what was happening. 5 minutes before the end, Minji saw Security Chief Jinwoo running past her window with 3 other security officers. They looked panicked. The station's sensors were probably detecting massive electromagnetic disturbances, but it was too late to do anything about it. 2 minutes before the collapse, Commander Kim appeared in the main corridor. He was shouting orders that Minji couldn't hear through the sealed pod bay. Behind him, she could see several Velthani moving with quick, nervous movements. Even their superior technology couldn't protect them now. 1 minute before the disaster, all the lights in the main station went out. Emergency power failed completely. The only illumination came from the independent lighting system in the pod bay where Minji waited. Then it happened. The planet's electromagnetic field collapsed completely. The magnetic barriers that had protected the surface for millions of years simply stopped existing. Deadly space radiation poured down from the sky like an invisible waterfall of death. At the exact moment of collapse, a brilliant flash of light filled the sky outside. It lasted only a few seconds, but Minji knew it was the electromagnetic pulse that would kill every living thing within 50 kilometers. The pod bay's radiation detectors started screaming with warning alarms. The levels outside were thousands of times higher than anything a human could survive. The pulse had turned the planet's surface into a zone of instant death. For several minutes, nothing seemed to happen. Then Minji started seeing the effects through her viewport. In the main corridor, she could see a figure stumbling against the wall. It was Communications Officer Do Yun. Even in the dim emergency lighting, she could tell something was wrong with him. He was moving like he was drunk or sick. Another figure appeared. Engineer So-min Yu was crawling along the floor, trying to reach something. Her movements were slow and unsteady. The radiation was attacking her nervous system and internal organs. Commander Kim appeared in the corridor, but he collapsed after only a few steps. He tried to get up several times, but his body wouldn't respond properly. The electromagnetic pulse had damaged every cell in his body. Through the viewport, Minji could see more people in the corridor. Dr. Wanbin was lying motionless near the laboratory entrance. Botanist So-young was sitting against a wall, not moving. Security Chief Jinwoo was on his hands and knees, but he wasn't going anywhere. The Valthani were dying too. Their superior biology offered them no protection against the massive radiation exposure. Science Officer Kent appeared briefly in the corridor, moving with the same sick, stumbling gait as the humans. Then he fell down and didn't get up. One by one, the crew members stopped moving. The radiation had destroyed their immune systems, nervous systems, and vital organs. They were dying from the inside out, just as Minji had predicted. She saw pilot Junho trying to reach the shuttle bay, probably hoping to escape in the aircraft. But he collapsed halfway there and lay still. The shuttle's electronics had been destroyed by the electromagnetic pulse anyway. Nothing could fly in this level of radiation. Chef Haeun appeared for a moment near the cafeteria entrance, but she immediately fell down and didn't move again. Her last meal was still cooking in the kitchen, but no one would ever eat it. Maintenance Officer Kyung-ho made it further than most of the others. He actually reached the main power console and tried to restart the station's systems, but the electromagnetic pulse had fried every electronic component in the building. Nothing worked anymore. He collapsed over the control panel and became still. The hardest to watch was Medic Yuna. She had managed to reach the medical bay and was trying to treat some of the other crew members. Minji could see her through the medical bay window, moving between patients with medical equipment. But one by one, her patients stopped responding. Then Yuna herself collapsed and joined them in death. Outside the station, geologist Minho and technician Nari had been collecting samples when the pulse hit. Through the external cameras that still worked on emergency power, Minji could see their bodies lying motionless on the purple ground. The radiation had killed them instantly. The Valthani Captain Thex made one last appearance in the main corridor. He was dragging himself along the floor, trying to reach the communication center. Maybe he wanted to send a final message to his people, but he died before he could get there, his tall gray form becoming still in the dim emergency lighting. For hours after the pulse, Minji could hear sounds from the main station. Automatic systems trying to restart. Emergency alarms that still had power. The hum of air recyclers struggling to function. But gradually, even these sounds stopped as the backup power systems failed completely. By midnight, the station was completely silent except for the independent life support system in the pod bay. Every person who had mocked Minji's warnings was dead. Every alien who had called her primitive was lying motionless in the dark corridors. Commander Kim, who had refused to listen to her, was dead near the bridge. Dr. Wanbin, who had trusted the aliens more than his fellow human, was dead in the laboratory. The Valthani science officers who had called her theories impossible were dead throughout the station. All of them had died exactly as she predicted, at exactly the time she had warned them about. The electromagnetic pulse had killed them all within minutes, just as her data had shown it would. Minji sat in the pod bay surrounded by death. She was the only living thing for 50 kilometers in any direction. Everyone who had called her crazy was now dead, and she was alive because she had trusted her own scientific analysis over their mockery and pride. She had tried to save them all. She had begged them to listen, shown them the data, explained the danger over and over, but they had chosen to trust alien technology and dismiss human warnings. Now she was alone on a dead planet, surrounded by the bodies of people who had died because they wouldn't believe her. Minji waited in the emergency pod bay for 6 hours after the electromagnetic pulse. Her radiation detector slowly showed the deadly levels outside, dropping to something she might survive for short periods. The planet was still dangerous, but no longer instantly fatal. She put on a full environmental suit and opened the pod bay doors. The silence that greeted her was complete and terrible. No hum of air recyclers, no background noise of computers, no voices of living people. The station was as quiet as a tomb. Her first stop was the bridge where Commander Kim had died. She found his body near the main control console, his face frozen in an expression of confusion and pain. Even in death, he looked like he couldn't understand what had happened to him. She checked his pulse anyway, hoping against hope that someone might have survived. Nothing. His body was already growing cold. The radiation had killed him hours ago. In the medical bay, she found Medic Yuna surrounded by the crew members she had tried to save. Dr. Wanban was on one medical bed, Engineer Huna on another. Yuna herself had collapsed between them, her medical scanner still in her hand. She had died trying to help others, never understanding that nothing could save them from radiation poisoning. Minji went through the entire station, checking every room, every corridor, every possible hiding place. The cafeteria where Chef Heun had been cooking dinner. The engineering section where Maintenance Officer Kyung-ho had tried to fix the power systems. The communication center where Do-hyun had struggled to send a final message. All dead. Every single person who had mocked her warnings was now lying motionless in the dark station. The humans who had trusted alien technology more than human science. The aliens who had called her primitive and emotional. All of them killed by the same electromagnetic disaster she had predicted. In the Valthani quarters, she found Science Officer Kent collapsed over his advanced sensor console. His yellow eyes were empty and staring. All his superior technology hadn't saved him from a natural disaster that simple human sensors had detected days in advance. Captain Thex was in the main corridor, his long gray body stretched out like he had been trying to crawl somewhere when the radiation finally killed him. The proud alien leader who had threatened to have her confined was now just another victim of his own arrogance. Outside the station, Minji found the bodies of geologist Minho and technician Nari. They were still wearing their environmental suits, but the radiation had penetrated even that protection. Their sample containers were scattered around them, full of rocks from a planet that had just killed them. After confirming that she was truly alone, Minji began the grim task of survival. The station's main power was completely dead, destroyed by the electromagnetic pulse. But some areas still had emergency power from shielded backup systems. She dragged food and water supplies to the pod bay, which had the most reliable life support. The independent air recycling system was still working, powered by a small reactor that had survived the pulse. She could live there for weeks if necessary. Using the pod bay's communication system, she recorded a message for Earth. This is Dr. Minji Park of the Kepler 442b research station. I am the sole survivor of an electromagnetic catastrophe that occurred at approximately 1800 hours local time. The planet's magnetic field collapsed completely, releasing a burst of deadly radiation that killed all other crew members, both human and Valthani. She paused, looking out at the dark station where 22 people had died. I warned everyone about this disaster 24 hours before it happened. My electromagnetic sensors detected the field collapse in advance. But the crew chose to trust Valthani technology over human analysis. Commander Kim refused to evacuate. The Valthani science team dismissed my warnings as primitive human emotion. She continued recording for an hour, explaining exactly what had happened and why, how she had tried to save everyone, how they had all refused to listen, how their trust in alien superiority had killed them. The disaster occurred exactly as my data predicted, at exactly the time I calculated. If anyone had listened to my warnings, all 23 crew members could have survived by evacuating to safe distance. Instead, only I am alive because I trusted human science over alien pride. She ended the recording and set it to broadcast continuously on all emergency frequencies. Eventually, someone would hear it and come to rescue her. The next few days were the hardest of her life. She was surrounded by the bodies of people she had worked with, lived with, tried to save. The silence was crushing. No conversations, no laughter, no normal sounds of people living their lives. She spent her time maintaining the life support systems and gathering supplies from different parts of the station. The electromagnetic pulse had destroyed most electronics, but some shielded equipment still worked. She rigged together a better communication system and improved her emergency beacon on the third day. She decided to move some of the bodies. It felt wrong to leave her former colleagues lying in the corridors like abandoned objects. She couldn't bury them in the alien soil, but she could at least put them somewhere more dignified. Commander Kim was heavy, but she managed to move him to his quarters and lay him on his bed. She did the same for Dr. Wanbin, Engineer Huna, and the others. It was exhausting work, but it felt important to treat them with respect, even in death. The Velthani bodies were harder to move because of their size, but she managed to get them to their quarters too. Even Science Officer Kent, who had called her primitive, deserved basic dignity in death. As she worked, she talked to the bodies. It helped with the terrible loneliness. "You should have listened, Commander," she said while moving Taiho Kim. "I tried to save you, I tried to save everyone, but you trusted them more than me." She found herself crying as she moved Medic Yuna. "You were trying to help people at the end. I saw you in the medical bay, trying to treat the radiation sickness. You were a good person, Yuna. You just trusted the wrong technology." On the fourth day, she started keeping a detailed log of everything that had happened. She wrote down every conversation, every warning she had given, every person who had refused to listen. She wanted there to be a complete record of how 22 people had died because of scientific pride and species prejudice. Day 4, after the electromagnetic catastrophe. "I am still the only survivor. The radiation levels outside continue to drop slowly. I estimate it will be safe to spend extended time outside the pod bay, in approximately 1 week." She wrote about how the humans had trusted alien sensors over human analysis, how the Velthani had dismissed her warnings as emotional nonsense, how everyone had chosen prejudice over science. The irony is devastating. The Velthani called humans primitive and emotional. They said we were ruled by fear instead of logic, but their logical sensors failed to detect a disaster that human. Emotional intuition and careful analysis saw coming days in advance. On the 5th day, she improved her communication setup and began sending more detailed messages to Earth. She transmitted all her electromagnetic field data, showing exactly how she had predicted the disaster. She wanted everyone to know that human science had been right and alien technology had been wrong. This is Dr. Minji Park. Day 5 after the Kepler 442b catastrophe. I am transmitting complete sensor data that proves the electromagnetic collapse was predictable and preventable. My warnings were ignored because the crew trusted Velthani technology over human analysis. She also started exploring more of the station, looking for anything useful for long-term survival. In the storage areas, she found enough food and water for several months. The air recycling systems in 3 different sections were still working on emergency power. Most importantly, she found that one of the escape pods had survived the electromagnetic pulse. Its shielded systems were still functional. If rescue didn't come soon, she might be able to launch the pod and try to reach the orbital station. On the 6th day, she finally received an answer to her distress calls. "Dr. Park, this is Captain Ji-hoon Ryu of the Earth vessel New Seoul. We received your emergency beacon and are en route to your location. Estimated arrival time is 18 hours. Please confirm your status and location." Minji cried with relief when she heard another human voice. She had begun to think she might die alone on the alien planet, surrounded by the bodies of people who wouldn't listen to her warnings. "Captain Ryu, this is Dr. Minji Park. I am alive and in stable condition in Emergency Pod Bay 3 of the research station. I am the only survivor of 23 crew members. The station suffered complete power failure due to electromagnetic pulse. All other personnel died from acute radiation exposure." "Understood, Dr. Park. We are carrying full medical and rescue equipment. Can you confirm the safety of landing near your position? Minji checked her radiation detectors. The levels were still higher than normal, but manageable for short periods with proper protection. Landing should be safe with full environmental suits and radiation shielding. The electromagnetic pulse occurred 6 days ago. Radiation levels have dropped to survivable but dangerous levels. Copy that, Dr. Park. Maintain your current position. Help is on the way. For the first time in nearly a week, Minji felt hope. She was going to survive. She would return to Earth and tell everyone what had really happened on Kepler 442b. The truth about human science being dismissed in favor of alien Aragon. The rescue ship New Seoul landed on the purple soil of Kepler 442b 18 hours after Captain Ji-hoon Ryu's first message. Minji watched through the pod bay viewport as the sleek white vessel touched down near the research station, its landing thrusters creating clouds of alien dust. She had been alone with the dead for 6 days. Seeing other living humans felt like waking up from a terrible nightmare. Captain Ryu was a tall man with kind eyes and graying hair. He entered the pod bay wearing a full radiation suit, followed by Dr. Yoonbi An, the ship's medical officer, and pilot Sungmin Oh. Dr. Park. Captain Ryu said through his suit's communication system. "Are you injured? Do you need immediate medical attention?" Minji shook her head. "I'm physically fine. The pod bay's shielding protected me from the radiation, but everyone else..." She gestured toward the dark station beyond the sealed doors. Dr. An ran her medical scanner over Minji. "Radiation exposure is minimal. Stress levels are very high, which is understandable, but you appear to be in remarkably good health for someone who survived a planetary disaster." "That's because I was prepared," Minji said. "I knew what was going to happen. I tried to warn everyone, but they wouldn't listen." Captain Ryu looked through the viewport at the dark research station. "Dr. Park, we need you to tell us exactly what happened here. Earth Command received fragments of your emergency messages, but we need the complete story." Minji led them to her makeshift communications center where she had been recording everything. "It started 3 days before the disaster. My electromagnetic sensors detected that the planet's magnetic field was collapsing." She showed them her data, the same readings she had tried to share with Commander Kim and the Valthani science team. Captain Ryu studied the numbers with growing amazement. "This data clearly shows an impending electromagnetic collapse," he said. "How could the station's leadership ignore such obvious evidence?" "They trusted Valthani sensors over human analysis," Minji explained. "Commander Kim said their technology was more advanced than ours. Science Officer Kent called my warnings primitive human emotion." Dr. An looked shocked. "They dismissed disaster warnings because of species prejudice. The Valthani said humans were ruled by fear instead of logic. The human crew members agreed with them because they wanted to maintain good diplomatic relations. Everyone thought I was having some kind of mental breakdown." Pilot Sungmin Oh shook his head in disgust. "So they chose alien pride over human science, and it killed them all." "I tried everything," Minji continued. "I showed my data to everyone who would look. I begged them to evacuate. I even tried to send emergency messages to Earth, but Communications Officer Do-hyun refused without commander approval." Captain Ryu looked at her with respect. "Dr. Park, you predicted a planetary disaster with perfect accuracy. Your analysis was correct down to the hour. This is remarkable scientific work." "It doesn't feel remarkable," Minji said sadly. 22 people are dead because they wouldn't believe me." They spent the next several hours going through the station. Captain Ryu and his team documented everything, taking pictures and recording evidence of what had happened. They found the bodies that Minji had moved to crew quarters, still wearing expressions of confusion and pain. In the Valthani science section, they found the advanced sensors that had failed to detect the disaster. Dr. An examined the alien technology with professional interest. "These sensors are impressive, but they're designed to detect specific types of electromagnetic activity," she observed. "They completely miss the signature pattern of magnetic field collapse. Your human sensors were actually better suited for this type of disaster prediction." In Commander Kim's quarters, they found his personal log recordings from the days before the disaster. Captain Ryu played them back and they all listened to the dead. Commander's voice describing Minji's warnings as hysteria and primitive human fear. Responses around the tragedy is that he genuinely believed he was making the right decision, Captain Ryu said. He trusted alien technology over human judgment, and it killed his entire crew. They found similar log entries from other crew members. Dr. Wanbin had recorded his belief that trusting the Valthani was essential for diplomatic relations. Engineer Hyuna had written about the importance of not embarrassing humanity in front of their more advanced alien partners. They all chose politics over science, pilot Shungmin observed. They were more afraid of offending the Valthani than they were of dying. The most painful discovery was Medic Yuna's final log entry, recorded just hours before the disaster. She had recommended sedating Minji and confining her to medical isolation for deep space paranoia. She genuinely thought she was helping me, Minji said as they listened to Yuna's voice describing symptoms of mental breakdown. She died trying to treat radiation sickness that could have been prevented if anyone had listened to my warnings. After documenting everything at the station, Captain Ryu's team prepared to take Minji home. Before they left, she insisted on visiting the monument she had created for the dead crew members. In the station's central corridor, she had arranged 22 small metal plaques with the names of everyone who had died. Above them, she had written a simple message. They ignored the warnings and paid the price. Human science was right. Alien pride was wrong. I wanted them to be remembered, Minji explained. Not as heroes or victims, but as people who died because they chose prejudice over truth. Captain Ryu read the names on the plaques. Humans and Valthani together, united in death by their shared refusal to listen to accurate scientific warnings. This will become a memorial to the dangers of scientific arrogance, he said. Their deaths won't be meaningless if we learn from this tragedy. The trip back to Earth took 3 months. During the journey, Minji worked with Captain Ryu and his crew to prepare detailed reports of everything that had happened. Her electromagnetic field data was analyzed by experts who confirmed that her predictions had been completely accurate. Dr. Yoonbi An helped her deal with the psychological trauma of being the sole survivor. You have nothing to feel guilty about, she said during one of their counseling sessions. You tried to save everyone. Their deaths are not your fault. I keep thinking about what I could have done differently, Minji said. Maybe if I had explained it better or been more diplomatic with the Valthani, or convinced Commander Kim to at least prepare the evacuation pods, Dr. Park, you did everything possible. You provided accurate data, clear warnings, and repeated attempts to convince them. The failure was theirs, not yours. When they finally reached Earth, Minji found herself famous. The story of the lone scientist who had predicted a planetary disaster and been ignored had spread throughout human space. She was called a hero of human resilience and scientific accuracy. Earth Command immediately implemented new protocols based on her experience. The Minji Park Protocol required that all disaster warnings be taken seriously, regardless of the species or rank of the person making them. Mixed human-alien expeditions could no longer dismiss human scientific analysis in favor of alien technology. At the formal inquiry into the Kepler 442b disaster, Minji testified before a panel of human and Valthani investigators. She presented her data and described exactly how the tragedy had unfolded. The Valthani representative, a tall female named Kess, listened to everything with obvious discomfort. When Minji finished her testimony, Kess spoke carefully. The Valthani Confederation acknowledges that our sensors failed to detect this specific type of electromagnetic collapse. We also acknowledge that our crew members showed inappropriate prejudice against human scientific capabilities. She paused, clearly struggling with what she had to say next. Dr. Park's analysis was superior to our own. Her warnings were accurate and should have been heeded. We apologize for the arrogance that led to this tragedy. It was the first time in recorded history that the Valthani had officially admitted that human science was better than their own technology. The inquiry's final report became required reading at every space, academy, and human territory. It concluded that 22 lives could have been saved if the crew had trusted human scientific analysis over species prejudice. 5 years later, Minji returned to space as the head of the new Planetary Disaster Prediction Service. Her job was to train scientists to recognize and warn about natural catastrophes, and to ensure that such warnings were always taken seriously. On her desk, she kept a small memorial plaque with the names of her former colleagues. It reminded her every day of the cost of scientific arrogance and the importance of trusting good data over pride. The Kepler 442b research station was left as a monument to the disaster. Ships passing through the system could visit the site and see where 22 people had died, because they wouldn't listen to accurate warnings. Above the entrance to the abandoned station, a new plaque had been installed. It read, "In memory of those who died here and in honor of the one who survived by trusting human science over alien pride. Let their deaths teach us to value truth over diplomacy." Minji Park had become a symbol of human resilience. The woman who had been mocked and dismissed had proven that human intuition and careful analysis could surpass even the most advanced alien technology. She had tried to save them all. When they refused to listen, she had saved herself. And in doing